It's the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. Now go practice. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar, and so many students overlook it. things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar. And so many students overlook this. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar. And so many students overlook this. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry inherently built into the guitar. And so many students overlook this. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar. And so many students overlook this. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar. And so many students overlook this. Check this out. One of the things that are the most important to understanding the fretboard layout is the natural geometry and symmetry that's inherently built into the guitar. And so many students overlook this.
Hey everyone, I'm Alan Robinson and welcome to The Guitar Doctor is In. This is episode one, and so we'll see what we get out of this, but I just want to tell you a little bit about what my new show is going to be about. It's hopefully going to be about everything related to guitar, so I'm always going to have some kind of lesson involved. Most of the time I'm going to try, when I can, to have a guest. Like tonight I have a guest with me and I'll introduce him here momentarily. And what I'm going to do is during the month, I'm going to have one live show. So we're starting off this month with a live show. So that's really kind of exciting. I thought it'd be fun to start it off with a live show and a guest just to get the project off the ground. And then most weeks, there's always going to be at least a lesson posted on YouTube. I'm aiming for Tuesdays at 8 o'clock is when it will always post. And as always, you'll be able to find PDFs for any kind of instructional materials that I do on my website at alanrobinsonmusic.com. And you'll find that in the description later once it's been posted permanently. But anyway, yeah, so it's going to be a fun show. We're going to talk about techniques, ways that I view the guitar. Doesn't mean it jives with everybody, but it's just the way I like to look at the fretboard. And I think a lot of the ideas that I have, they resonate with some of my students, and that's why I wanted to start sharing it a little more in a broad, general way with the public. But we'll do that. We'll have some jams. There'll be some backing tracks that's created. I will have some guest artists from time to time as far as maybe some of the colleagues here with me. I teach at Belmont University and have some great colleagues in the guitar department. Those guys are phenomenal players and educators. And so eventually I get to get them on the show with me, and we'll do some jams and we'll talk and share some ideas about our views of the guitar and guitar pedagogy. But yeah, so I'm saying a lot of ums because I'm not used to being on the camera this much. And so we're going to have to correct that. But one thing you'll find out about me, if you don't know, is I'm very lighthearted. So, I just kind of laid back and enjoy it because music's got to be fun. Learning the guitar's got to be fun. And that's what we need to do. So without going on too much further on that, let me introduce my guest tonight. I have with me the wonderful, outstanding guitarist, Ethan Murray from here in Belmont. Yeah, Ethan, thanks for coming on the show with me tonight. This is going to be so much fun. I'm going to let Ethan kind of tell a little bit about himself, but I'm going to tell you, I chose Ethan, or asked Ethan, and it was really funny. About 2 days ago, I sent you an email 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Sent him an email 2 days ago. And I was like, Ethan, I want you to be on the first episode live with me. And oddly enough, he said yes. So it's on you now, man. You said yes, and you're here, and we'll see what happens, right? But no, Ethan is a wonderful young player here at Belmont University. He's a senior getting ready to graduate this semester. Ethan, where are you from originally? Where's home?
So I'm from a small town in Western New York. It's called Arkport. It's about an hour south of Rochester. Grew up on my family's dairy farm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just small town, public school with maybe 800 kids or something like that, K through 12, and just not much to do other than drive around,
play guitar,
work on the farm, and play guitar.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's what you do there, man.
Yeah.
It's really cool having Ethan here with me, and one of the reasons I chose Ethan and asked him is because although he's a student of mine and I've known him since I've been here at Belmont, he does not study directly with me. He studies with one of my colleagues, one of my wonderful colleagues over here, Dr. Paulo Oliveira. And so Ethan is not, how should I say, tainted by my by all of my ideas and concepts. Although he's had me in advanced seminar here, which is great. So he's heard some of the stuff in that course with me for the past couple of years, I guess now.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. And so, but it's just really great to have him here for that. But let's get to know Ethan a little bit, because since he's on the show, I want to highlight him and discuss some of the things you're doing. So you're playing around here in Nashville already, right?
Yeah. Also, I'm honored that you've asked me to do this. Be the first person to.
We still got some time to go. You may renege that statement later, but let's go for it.
But yeah, I'm playing with an artist. His name's Kevin Bull Jr. He plays regular shows around town. He's taking a little break for a little bit just because he's recording some stuff. I'll be on his newest song soon here. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be saying that, but we'll I don't know. But
we won't Kevin, don't be, if you're watching this, he did not just say that.
But yeah, we'll be playing. I'm playing on some recitals. My roommate Rob Montano, he's having a recital here, Massey Performing Arts Center on the 12th of February, and end of this month, February 26th, Rock Ensemble's playing in the same spot. That'll be a great time. A lot of good music lined up for that, and then obviously my senior recital on April 23rd, coming up. So that'll be fun. That's a little bit far out, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And since you mentioned him, I give a shout out to Kevin just for the fact that Kevin is one of our students here at Belmont too, and a fabulous bass player, and he sings for the group, right? He writes,
Yep.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some really cool rock riffs too. I've listened to him, and he's got some great videos on Instagram too. Cracks me up.
Everybody sees it.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody around here is like, oh, it's Kevin.
Yeah. And Rob too. What a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
vocalist, and I've had the pleasure of having Rob sing with my ensemble that I direct here. So it's been great. Ethan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your influences for the guitar? What brought you to playing this instrument anyway?
So when I was in elementary school, about 4th grade. Well, I guess I should preface. I've got an older brother, older sister. Oldest brother is Andrew. My older sister is named Alyssa. My little brother Eli. And music, I guess, is quite an important part. I guess we don't really talk about it, but we all really like music. My parents don't really play at all, but my older brother started playing drums and percussion in the school concert band and stuff. So I kind of followed suit in like 4th grade, started on percussion and playing drums to Queen records, and
Cool. Yeah.
Was really into Queen and a lot of other classic rock and stuff. Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, all the classic rock greats.
Classic rock.
But
Man.
then I was watching this show called The Voice. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yep.
When I was about 13, and they're all excellent singers, really great vocalists on that show. But this guy came up on stage, and he was a little bit different. He had a guitar on, and he was playing a bunch of blues stuff, and I was like, I think that's what I want to do. And I just got my older brother's guitar out of the closet and got started, and now I'm here, I guess.
That's awesome.
That's how
awesome.
works.
That's great. So classic rock. Unfortunately for me, classic rock was modern rock when a lot of that was around. But that's cool. No, that's great. And Ethan is a fabulous player. He really is, and I'm really happy for him with graduating this semester. Really glad he's here. So you've given some of the projects you've got coming up, and after you graduate, you plan on staying around the Nashville area, right?
Yeah, I'll be staying in town, playing for a bunch of people. Like I said, I'm playing for a bunch of people's recitals and stuff, and just people reaching out like, oh, I want guitar on my recording, or this because the community here at Belmont is really just amazing. Like, you can't get, this isn't everywhere. So
no, this is
really nice.
This is really a special place, and I've learned that since I've been here, and then getting the opportunity to have the opportunity to work with students like yourself. So I'm really glad to have you on here tonight. So thank you. Another shout out I want to get is to the guy behind all the tech tonight, trying to keep us alive and floating and streaming and everything else. We've had a couple of technical issues already, but he's lining them out. He is one of my students, and he will eventually be on the show here pretty soon. But right now he's just trying to manage things so we don't collapse. Is Brent, Texas. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get that in there. But Texas is a wonderful guitarist himself. He too is a senior this semester and getting ready to graduate. So, but you'll get to meet Texas in an upcoming show. So let's talk guitar now. Let's talk some different things.
Yes.
And I've actually got this mini lesson, and I guess for the fact that we're probably going to be on here for a little bit longer than a mini lesson, it's an expanded lesson. But if you're interested, you can go out to my website, again, alanrobinsonmusic.com, and there's a tab at the top that says The Guitar Doctor is in. If you click there and scroll down the page, you'll find PDFs for all the material that I'm going to discuss tonight and share with Ethan. And what's really cool about what we're going to do is, like I said, he's heard some of the things. It's kind of building off of basics, and I'm going to talk about why. But we're going to take these basic concepts that I'll discuss and talk a little bit how you can advance them into more complex situations and chord changes and whatnot to do that. So what sparks this idea for me is working with some of my students here at the university and students that I teach in the private sector. And I've done this for quite a while to where, especially for rock players or players that come in to any kind of program or try to, oh, you know what? I'm glad you did that, because you got to give you a shout out. But I didn't shout out to your mom.
Oh my gosh.
Your mom, because I saw her hit my Instagram today. Hi, Jen. We haven't met officially. Hopefully I get to meet you maybe later this semester. But anyway, hi and thank you. Great son. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'll get back on task. You knew it was coming at some point.
Yeah, I knew it.
You knew it. But anyway, back to what I'm talking about with Fretboard. I grew up as a rock player. Coming out of the 80s and early 90s is where I was learning to play and cut my teeth, so to speak. And I know when I went to school at first and I tried to adapt to either playing jazz or anything that was change related, chord change related, I found it very difficult. I couldn't think like the jazz guys that come in there that had studied some of this. It was just a different mindset. And so I was always looking for a lack of better terms, some kind of shortcut or hack that could make me understand the fretboard a little bit better to tackle them. Because anytime I studied with someone who was a real jazz player, it felt like it was just going by really quick. And as a result, I started finding little trinkets of information that I felt worked well for me to tackle the guitar. Things like playing simple triads, or whether it be chord voicings or for improvisation, different ways of manipulating the pentatonic scale to get the changes that I wanted. And so these tools, because I understood theory really well, but when it came to playing the guitar, for some reason, I'd always fall into a rut. And so I wanted to take tools that the average rock guitarist with maybe very minimal training would explore, and take those and turn them into a tool that could be useful. And so those tools tend to be things like triads, basic triads, or pentatonic scales, or power chords. You know, those are always the big three for me, thinking about it. And so I did take those devices and manipulate them into ways that I felt could simplify the guitar. And by doing that, the way my concept works is taking smaller to build larger. You know,
yeah,
it's kind of like, you know, if you're going to build a house, you got to have the frames, you got to have the foundation, then you got to frame it, and then you put the walls up. You got to have all these components to go together to build that. Or if you're building a brick wall, you know, you're going to stack the bricks, and those are small bricks, but you got to stagger them to where they're going to hold tight, right? And so I think a lot about the guitar in that kind of manner. So I took small elements to build large forms. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight with using triad forms. And the way I think about this is through fretboard, what I call fretboard symmetry. Because I think, and this is maybe a personal opinion, and I know most instrumentalists, they look at their instrument and they see patterns or shapes or symmetrical passages on their instruments because that's what they play the longest. But to me, the guitar is probably one of the most symmetrical instruments I've ever encountered. You know, I think it's a wonderful instrument that you can manipulate in a lot of different ways. And I think that's why so many people gravitate towards the guitar. And when they have to go study it formally, I don't know what you felt like when you first got here as a freshman, but I know so many freshmen that come in, it's like, wait a minute, I've actually got to study and practice the guitar now. It's different because before you get here, right? I mean, it's kind of like, it's fun, it's jamming with friends, and not that goes away. We just seem to think it goes away.
Yeah.
Is that how you felt when you got here?
Yeah, it's kind of like you're just kind of, well, at least from my experience, like I was learning how to play, and I kind of just started playing with people, like especially my two brothers. My older brother plays drums, and my little brother, he plays guitar, bass, drums. And we just started jamming out together and just learning enough to get by and have fun doing it, and mainly like just doing a bunch of just transcribing, just learning from the people like that you look up to like the most.
And sometimes, especially at a young age, when you learn a solo. Like I remember learning solos, and when I learned the solo from that artist or whatever, maybe I get some really good technique coming out of it, but I didn't really understand and comprehend what's inside of it. You know, I didn't look at it from a theoretical perspective.
Yeah,
all the
I'll
time.
come back to things I've played when I was in high school.
Yeah,
and look at them and say, "Oh, I know what's going on there."
Right. Now. And the cool thing, and where the symmetry first started for me was to see things like one of the first things we learned to do, right, as guitarists is when it comes to soloing is usually playing like a pentatonic scale.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, you know, you might play an A minor pentatonic scale, and then all of a sudden you want to change. And what do? It's like, I want to try change octaves, and all of a sudden you're up here.
Yeah.
You know, all you're doing is moving that same shape, and maybe you figure out, oh, well, I could do that from the 12th fret, and it's similar, and the shape changes. But and so I started looking at how the fretboard was very symmetrical because of the way we move. And so first thing, let me show you some of the things that I think come out of the symmetry, which is, you know, there's various systems that we learn to play guitar. For example, here at Belmont University, we use the Cage system as the platform for teaching. So that's one system. Myself growing up in the time period I did and playing in the late 80s, early 90s, I did a lot of 3-note per string because I was coming out of playing heavy metal and shred kind of stuff. And then when I attended my undergrad, which I went to the Berklee College of Music, I had to learn the Bill Levitt method that was in the Berklee books, and which is kind of a combination of those two, in my opinion, just kind of a blend of 3-note per strings, just the way it works, but it's all positional playing. And all of those systems and other systems, they are great. But no system is perfect. Even the things that I'm going to discuss tonight is not 100% perfect. You have to learn to manipulate it and see what works for you as an individual player. But we use these systems in order to at least organize the fretboard, get into the seeing how the fretboard is laid out. Because I think of the fretboard as a map that I've got to lay out my pathways, understand which direction I can go. But over the years of playing and the things that I discovered, the symmetrical impact was huge. And I think one of the first things that, other than that pentatonic scale, but it still relates back to the pentatonic scale that got me, was something that was taught to me in my undergrad by one of my professors that I studied with, primarily a cat named John Finn up at Berklee. Hi, John. Shout out in Boston, Mass. And I love the way he taught, just for the fact that he was kind of out of the box thinking, in my personal opinion. I don't know that he always agrees with me on that, but he thought out of the box where he didn't get trapped by a stagnant idea. And he showed me this trick that I could take a pentatonic scale, a fragment of it, like if I take this slower fragment, and he gave it a geometrical shape, like a forward trapezoid. And then he showed me, well, if I could play from A there, then I could play it from A here, and I could play it from A here, and I could play it from A here. And it doesn't change. And so the shapes never change. And that's what's great on the instrument, because when we look at it, this is a multi-dimensional instrument. So there's so many things that are going on. From that, I started finding different things, and that really opened up my mind. But here's what I'm going to share with you. So tonight's discussion is primarily going to evolve around triads and triad forms, particularly one, but I'm going to show you 3 different ones. And Ethan, you can play along, and you at home can play along too. If I were to look at C being rooted on the 6th string, and I said, okay, we'll play just a close voice triad arpeggio. And if I'm going to look at playing that arpeggio, how many different ways can I play it from that particular fret, if you look at it?
So you got that one.
Right. Right.
Can 3 different ones.
There's the others. And really, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, now there may be something out there, I leave a caveat all the time, that somebody cleverly comes up with, but I really don't see it. I see 3 different ways. So when I discover this and I think about it, because it doesn't really matter where I go. If I played it here,
yeah,
it's going to play the same way. If I went up here, it doesn't really matter. My fingerings are going to be the same. They're going to be consistent. Now, here's what I'm going to throw down that a lot of people may have different opinions about, but if I were to take that up the octave, then all of a sudden we start seeing that B string come in, and it's like, oh, it just moved up. But here's the way my brain thinks about it. I don't see it as moving up. It's an illusion. And one of the best descriptions, again, from the same professor, was if you take a glass of water, and I actually meant to have a glass of water in here and do this, but if you take a glass of water, it's like an old science project, and you put a pencil behind the glass of water, where the water breaks,
yeah,
and the glass is empty, it looks like the pencil's offset.
It's just a shift. So you got this, and then it, and then this.
Right.
Like,
and so it's an illusion. So when I play this arpeggio from root, that's really the same. And if I went up here, I could do it again. So I just moved it in 3 octaves. I'm just out of strings to be able to do so there. So when it boils down to it, we got three triad shapes. Here's what's really cool if you break it down into, let's say we use the cage system to teach. If I'm going to, like one of the forms, like the G form, if I'm going to learn to play a major triad of that, if I play that C triad and then I come to the octave, well, if you look at that, the B string is shifted, theoretically. Well, I guess it's not really theoretical. It has shifted.
Yes.
But in my mind, it's not shifted. So therefore, it's really that shape again. And then I'm back to my tonic. And I'm out of strings. Otherwise, from there, I could play that shape again if I had more strings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm talking about, that the symmetry is things start lining up. And when you start realizing, oh, well, I've only got 3 options of how to do this, then I can find them very easily. So if I wanted to choose this one, and this shape, this would come out like if I was playing the E form out of the cage shape. Then if I played that and I went to my octave, well, guess what that put me in? Back into that shape, just an octave up. Then if I go to the C, I could consider this out of this shape, which is more, in my mind, of coming from 3-note per string patterns. But I'm out of strings, so I can't really go anywhere. So I could have had that, and if I had that other string, right? So that's the way I look at this, and I see this. So what I started discovering in the shape that we're going to primarily work with tonight is this middle shape. And exactly, see, and he already did it where he could see it in 3 octaves very easily. And that's one of the exercises that we'll talk about in this. But using that shape, now if I wanted to go to the other quality of triads, so we got major triads, minor triads, diminished triads, and augmented triads. Out of those, the augmented may be used the least, especially in pop and rock commercial forms, right? So we're not going to really touch on that. But if I wanted to manipulate this shape to accommodate the other forms, then all I have to realize is I've got my root, my major third, my fifth, and I can lower the third in order to make it a minor. And here's what's great about this as we start moving through the exercises is I don't have to change the fingering patterns that I'm playing. So for me, one of my big things that I express with students is consistency of fingering, consistency of picking, because that's how you're going to be able to take advantage of the territory on the fretboard.
I'd say that's consistent between pretty much most of the professors here that I've learned guitar from. It's all about working smarter, not harder.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I think I used that in class today a couple of times.
Work smarter, not harder. Smarter.
Because and what works for one person may not work for the other. So I'm going to use this one because I like that one, but maybe somebody else can work off of that shape a little bit better. But for me, I'm going to work off that. So I've got major, then I've got minor. If I want a diminished triad, then I'm going to simply lower that fifth. In this case, I could keep that middle finger on the root, but in this case, just because it feels more comfortable over 4 frets, I move it down to my third finger so I kind of get that kind of movement. And so when I do that now, that I've gone through those 3 shapes, what I've done is I've revealed all the possible shapes that could be in a diatonic key. So like if we looked at the key of G major, and I think my handouts are in the key of G major. They may be in the key of C major. Are they in the G?
They're in G.
Yep. They're in G. I make so many handouts all the time, I actually forget that I made a handout. I need to make a handout for my handouts so I can keep up with them. In order for this to really work and be fluid, another thing I do is I break it down to 2 string groups. So I like to think in groups of like 6-5, 5-4, 4-3, 3-2, 2-1, in order to do my practices and exercises and ideas. Again, just like when he did the octave thing, those were the same arpeggio on 3 sets of 2 in string sets. So the first thing we're going to look at is playing on string set 6-5, to where I use all the diatonic arpeggios in the key. And it's very basic exercise, but it's a good exercise to get your fretboard moving, because by the time you do all these exercises, you will have covered the entire fretboard. That's, to me, the the great thing about approaching it in this way, as opposed to doing like just the systems. The systems are great because you need to learn and play in position. You need to learn all your notes. You need to know all the forms that are in there. Never discount those. Those are extremely valuable and very important, especially like in situations like reading music. Because if you're jumping all over the fretboard trying to read, you're going to crash and burn. Right? That's right.
It's not gonna work.
It's not going to work, right? We got too many
Yeah.
places we can read the same octave on the instrument. That's one of the difficulties of this instrument. But this exercise, the things that you need to know two elements. First, you need to know what are the order of chord qualities in a key, right? So this is a real simple way of doing it and kind of putting it in a, I don't know what I want to say, but it's just a pattern. If you think major, minor, minor, there's your 1, 2, and 3 chord. Then you got major, major, minor. So it's kind of like flipping the formula, right? Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and then you get diminished. It's kind of like Texas sitting over here in the corner eating saltines and mayonnaise or something. You get the one chord that's just different than everybody else. Sorry, man. There's a setup. But so you have that. So what I do is, without having to change the fingering pattern until I get to the diminished, another consistency I do is my picking pattern. I think you do this picking pattern of economy picking, right?
Yeah, I read it. Yeah,
I use a lot of economy picking. So in this case, which would be like down, down, up. Because it allows me to kind of move a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Than
Economy
doing
of
all
motion.
Economy of
Hence
motion.
the name, right?
That's right.
Hence the name.
That's right. A la Frank Gambale. I did not create that, so I won't even go there. But so now let's do this where we're going to play diatonically up the fretboard. But the second point of information that you got to have under your hands, other than the order of those chord qualities, is how to even build a major scale. So you got to be able to do a major scale on a single string. So you got to know whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So that's the formula, the interval distance in between those scale tones. With those two pieces of information, having just the basic triad form and the consistent picking, you can now go up through that. So if we were to play that together, and one of the things I like to do, I could do it this way. We'll just play it as written on this form. That way you can follow along if you've got it. We'll just do like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so that gets me up one octave. I get it all the way to the octave. Some of the ways I like to practice, and I kind of gave that demonstration in the second half of that page, is to run them all together without a rest in between, because that way I can get some rhythmical displacement, Yeah. And if you're soloing, it kind of breaks it all up, right? So if we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. All right, so it's a great thing to kind of just get those into your hands. The picking doesn't have to change. The only place that I changed to fingering was on the diminished.
Yep.
And I went to that third finger like that, just like that. Now, what I have my students often do is play that up and down. And even when they come back down, they keep the arpeggio ascending initially. And then I have them go to the next string set, 5 and 4. And when you go there, I'm going to go across, just so you know, in diatonic fourths. So like in the key of G, I would have G, C, F sharp, B, E, and A. We're not going to get to the A because obviously I don't have a string underneath that. But when I'm looking at my string set, so if I'm going to come across from there, and yes, you may have noticed I'm not using open strings because really right now I'm just trying to get the facility of all the digits going. So I'm not going to worry about the open strings at the moment with these exercises. But if I come across, then that means C. I'm going to keep it in the key of G major still. So I'm still on my 4 chord. So when I go up the fretboard, I have to play the 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 minor, 7 diminished, 1, 2 minor, and now to that octave. Without going through all the string sets, because we want to keep a reasonable time on the show tonight. I don't even know how far we're into it. My screens went down, so I can't even look around. Maybe that's a good thing. I would continue that on to all the other string sets. So I would just go on. When I get to the string set 3 and 2, again, keep in mind the B string shifted, but it's not shifted.
Right.
Yeah, so
just
you still maintain it's just the 1 fret. So like a minor shape, you've brought up that upper portion of those 2 notes. But the picking hasn't changed, and then and then I'm back there, or right, so I can get into there to finish out the sequence. So that's, take each string set group by group, go through these and get it up to an octave, and then come back down. Here's some variations on ways that you can play this. I like to do this too, is then I combine string groups like 6/5 and 5/4 together, to where I'll do it ascending, but I'm going to go fourths all the way up.
I see.
Yeah. So like if we went,
That's cool. Yeah.
yeah, because then you got to be thinking, you're increasing your
Yeah.
multitasking, right? Because
You're
now
thinking
you got
you're on two different
string
things,
sets, yeah,
sets of thinking,
and the chords will change. Now the thing I like about this, let's say we added one more. What if we did 3 string sets?
Oh Lord.
So we're gonna do 6/5, 5/4, 3/2. So if I go across, then I'm gonna get G, C, F sharp diminished, A minor, D, B minor, A minor. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Uh,
Yeah, right? And then D, G, C. There's a lot of information here that actually can be absorbed, by the way. One, moving in fourths makes sense because a lot of music moves in fourths, especially like if you're learning to play jazz. I'm going to give that secret here at the end on how you can use some of these moves to really start getting the vocabulary into your playing, even if you're not a jazz player, because it can come in fairly easy. But what you're learning is, you're also learning how the chords are stacked in fourths. So I can see, like, if I start from that 5 chord, then I've got 3 major chords stacked, right?
this just isn't just jazz, or this is
This
the
is
major
just
scale.
That's it. That's right. We're not even.
Built on.
It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
style you're in. Like I use this in rock. I use this in jazz. I use it in everything that I try to tackle, because it's become part of my playing and my natural vocabulary.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of cool to see. And again, what we're looking at is the fretboard and how it lays out. And the nice thing about this is, when you're learning these, like even in the 2 string sets, it doesn't matter if I go to G, C, it's going to be there again. Even better, if I have to change keys, it doesn't matter. If I'm thinking 1, 4, 2, 5, it doesn't matter. I could go to the key of B flat, and I can have 1, 4, 2, 5. It's not going to change. So once you learn it one time, that's it. That's it. And it's and because of that, I think it's great. So I'll do exercises like that, and then we did it kind of like breaking it up again, but I would do it with consistent eighth notes, where we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right. You want to try that one?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Just 2 string sets, right?
Just 2 string sets. We're going for it all now, Ethan. Come on, man. All right, here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's so I'm tripping up on. Yeah.
Usually around the 3 chord.
It's when you have to switch to your 3rd finger.
It is. Yeah, when you're going to the 4 chord, at the 3 chord, people start thinking, because now it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's 2 minors stacked. And then all of a sudden you get the major and the diminished chord stacked. And when you're doing that, it's like, okay, wait a minute, my fingering just changed. But, you just got to kind of work it into your mind and your muscle memory. And the only way to do that is through constant repetition, obviously, right?
That's
now,
good movement.
Yeah.
As far as notes goes, I guess.
It is. Another exercise I have students do, it's not in this particular packet. Maybe I'll upload it to the website anyway. But it's like doing cycle 4. Yeah. Like if you're a jazz musician and you're studying that all the time, you hear those teachers always say, well, you got to learn everything in all 12 keys. You need to play all your exercises, all your licks in all 12 keys. But practice your fundamentals just like that. So like if I wanted to do 2 string sets, I might have you do an exercise like, and that's one way of doing it. Or maybe I want to do 3 string sets and I'm going to find a different pattern where I'll go.
I see. Considering that's just one of the shapes.
That's just one of the shapes.
You can do it this shape too.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to kind of find those, like if I did
those too.
Yeah, again, I'll show my lapse of using that kind of shape, but it's the same kind of idea, and that is a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because whichever one works for you, find that way to practice it. And there's all kinds of the idea when I explain this to my students to practice this and to be able to expand it, because I have them find different ways of expanding it, is to be able to directionally go wherever you want. And it's really kind of cool if you're just using the major chords at first, because then you could say, oh, okay, I want to go up the 3 string sets and come back down this one, but maybe I want to finish that one out from there and go all the way across. So I do something like this where I go across, which now can lead me back down to here, because there's all kinds of different paths you could take. And what that allows you to do is really hone in on not just the fingering and the picking technique and the sound of the triads, and just it gives you direction. Because then it's like, oh, I know where this chord goes to this chord and this chord goes to, and you could do it in almost any.
Paulo explained it to me really well. It's like a road you've driven down a million times.
There it is. That's a great statement. I like that line. I'm going to steal that, Paulo. No, I won't. I promise. Because it becomes very familiar. Because what you're trying to do is map your fretboard to where you really understand where everything's at.
And in all 12 keys.
And in all 12 keys. Because this doesn't change. I mean, everything's staying the same. So you could do this diatonically. Another exercise I do is diatonic fourths going across. All the way. Which that becomes a little tougher because
That's tricky.
Yeah, because you got to be thinking about all those triads and how they stack in fourths. That's a great exercise, and it takes you a long way, because when you start seeing it diatonically, there's a few things that get exposed from that. But before I go into what that just exposed, I wanted to talk about a couple of different exercises where you could do it. And we kind of did that in the beginning when Ethan did the octaves, but I could take each one of those. And here's what I want you to notice. If you notice, we've already covered a great deal of fretboard territory already, right? It's like being the Lewis and Clark of the fretboard. Did you got my sound bite to clap and laugh or anything? I'm going to have to pay him something, I guess. Anyway, so you're just getting more territory. At least Ethan's laughing. He may be laughing at me like you are, but that's okay. Not at the joke. But by playing octaves, if I do G major and I go through all the diatonic triads in 3 octaves, that's another way of kind of looking at this and being able to explore that. So I would highly recommend you do that. So those are some exercises: diatonic fourths, 2 string groups, octaves. Those are great exercises. The sheets that I put on my website are just the beginning. It's just the basics, but if you start there, you've got room to grow, and you can get creative, and hopefully with some of the things that I show in a moment, you can get even a little more creative. So let's take this into where we can start tackling chord changes. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right. So let's say we take a simple A minor 7 chord. Since we're in the key of G, we'll just stay there, and we'll use this as the 2 chord. So like a Dorian chord. An exercise, and now there's a lot of jumping around here. I'm not talking about inversions yet, so you still got that whole world to explore. You got to explore first and second inversions. You could do them on 2 string sets. You can find them easier in other ways. But for now, I'm still going to keep us in these root positions, because one, I want to really focus in on what triads can be superimposed over to top of a particular chord. So in this case, A minor 7. In the first place I start with any chord that I'm looking at. And this is without knowing, oh, well, I can have this 9th, or I can have this 11th, or I can have this 13th. Extensions of the chords, or tensions, whatever term you want to put with that. I'm going to look at just the chord tones themselves. So if I'm thinking A minor 7, right, I'm going to think about A, C, E, and G. I'm going to keep those triads diatonic to the key. So if I did that, I would have to have what? When I did that, I'm going to let you You now take control of the helm, number 2. So if I were going to play just those triads just like that, and I was going to focus on those notes, and I'm just going to do root position, right? So I would have...
Oh.
You see how I'm thinking?
Yeah.
I'm just using those basics that we did. Now you see it kind of flipped it there, like you went there. But I'm going to use all of these same shapes because I'm not going to change my picking. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So see
if you're keeping it diatonic to G major, right?
Yep. And I'm just playing off the chord tones of A minor 7.
Ah, I see. So you'd go.
Yep. You can do that. Yep.
Right. And
yep.
Then.
Right. There you go. So that was one path. He actually played a different path than me, but that's because he knew where C was here. He could have gone to C here. He could have gone right up the string set had he wanted to.
Yeah.
Because
it's just on the chord tone.
It's just on the chord tone. It doesn't matter. And what you're drilling in is, I'm playing from A, C, or I could think root, flat third, fifth, flat 7.
Getting some of the notes around it too.
Yes. And as you're doing this, this is another tip that I show a lot of students for a minor chord, at least up to the 5th. These can change because of 9s, 11s, and 13s. But in minor 7 chords, they're opposite qualities from the root to the 5th. So major, I'm backwards. Minor, major, minor.
That's yeah.
So it's kind of a quick way of thinking about it. If I were doing a major 7 chord, for example, if I was in the key of G,
makes it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
so now you can start thinking.
So it's just. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's coming faster because I'm just knowing.
Because now you're thinking,
flip.
you're flip flopping. Same thing can happen for your major 7 chords. So I could do G major, B minor, D major, major, minor, major. So if it's a major chord, it's going to go major, minor, major. If it's a minor chord, it's going to go minor, major,
Flips.
minor. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it just kind of keeps consistent with that.
Oh, wait. That wasn't right. But yeah. Okay.
You see where it's going. Yeah, we'll use that in a minute.
Going.
So what I like to do is I like to, first you might map the notes. So I might see them like that to where I could play now 2 octaves.
Where are my chord tones?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the game. It's like the game of where are my chord tones? Right. And nothing changed. Nothing had to change. It's still limiting in a way. You're having to do a lot of movement. But again, I think sometimes that movement is really good because you're gaining more territory on the fretboard and understanding where it's located without changing and shifting a lot of the information that you're having to learn, if that makes sense, the way I said it.
Especially if you're like really stuck in a linear mindset.
Yeah.
Might help just break things up a bit.
Yeah. And there's no rule of which order you have to play them in. That's a good order to practice in because you get used to the chord tones in the order they are. But, if you're trying to improvise out of that, then you can use those as improvisational tools. But the first thing I'd recommend is, like, if you're practicing it, practice it with a metronome or whatever, or a drum track, or put a groove on it. So if we had like right, and think about that. Just one little octave out of that, right? And then, actually, go ahead and do that. 2, 3. I'll let you play the triads, right?
So then minor, major, yeah. Keep going. I skipped one, but
but that's the idea. And of course, you do have to like what he just did when he went to that octave. He had to remember the B string, but again, it's not out. He's just remembering it. And again, he's gaining a lot of territory from that. Now, if we actually went back to use those and we wanted to put them into an improvisational kind of thing, just to create a solo, then we can mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But what we've done now is we've done enough work to where I see my road map. As you mentioned, it's a road familiar that I've traveled plenty of times. So then I can explore out of that different sound. So we can get this kind of thing. So we get the groove back going in for us here. 3, 4. That's not part of it, but. And when I'm doing this, here's the cool thing. I'm going to let him do the groove. I'm going to groove and I'm going to let him do it. But one of the cool things that I start seeing out of this, even playing out of these, and I start improvising, then I start seeing different intervals I might be able to think of. Fifths, all these thirds now, you know, and seeing where all they come in. It's just kind of cool. You start seeing different things, and I'll kind of give a demonstration of that. Go ahead and improvise a little bit. Just mix it up, and and you can stay in the 1 octave, even though it's kind of low and maybe gets a little muddy. But stay in the 1 octave. But you can mix them up any way you want to mix them up now. But it's just a matter of following your roadmap, right?
Okay.
2, 3, 1, 2.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. You can just add notes here and there. Like,
are you through using this process? Are you finding some things differently that you would play now than
I wouldn't play that.
He wouldn't play that at all.
I probably wouldn't play that normally. No.
Right. But you kind of discover a couple of new ways that maybe you'd incorporate into your playing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a different way. And again, it's always good to get different perspectives on how you look at the fretboard. Let's take it up a notch, right? Let's take it up a notch. Okay. Let's change it now. I'll talk about like if we were making other chord changes, like if we were going to do a 2-5-1 in jazz. All right. So I pointed out earlier when we practiced in fourths, the circle of fourths is actually a good way of practicing 2-5-1 because 2-5-1 moves in fourths. And if I were to follow this in the key of G, I'd have A as my 2 chord, 5 is my D is my 5 chord. Of course, 5 is my 5 chord. A is 2, D is 5, and G is 1. And they're all in a line together. So if I apply the diatonic arpeggios to that triads, now all of a sudden I'm outlining the chords. And one of the things you want to do when you're trying to play changes is to apply it to chord tones and or tensions as you get more advanced and try to find ways to target those notes of the chord to sound like the chord even if you didn't have an accompaniment. So there, now I've got 2-5-1. So if I played the 2, you could play the triad. It sounds just like the chord. It sounds without even me playing, but when you put the chord underneath it, it's like, wow, there it is. Got it. Now, here's the tricky part because we're working in groups of 3 notes, 3-note groups. If I'm playing over changes that have 2 beats each, you know, either I'm going to play something, I may have this tendency going do-da-da, which is fine. You got to get there. But if I want to start incorporating some of the jazz vocabulary, then I'm going to start manipulating by adding devices such as passing tones or approach notes. So a passing tone is passing between a chord tone to a chord tone. So I can do that if I got a whole step, or I can approach from a chromatic tone below the root of what I'm targeting right now. So it becomes, so my root of the chord in the case of 5 is D. And so that becomes my target note because that's what I'm looking for. So if I wanted to put a chromatic passing tone to get to the D, I might do something like, and so already my vocabulary is sounding a little more advanced. I could do something like this with the chromatic approach below. And so now it's like, oh, but I'm not doing anything special other than ornamentation around these basic triad shapes. So then I could take this 2-5-1 and I could play and now I've done a chromatic approach to each. I could also go back and go later on down the line, I can even make it a little more advanced. You want to play through those ones?
Sure.
Just put those chromatic approaches and or the other, okay? Let's put it in time. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, right? So he already, he's getting that vocabulary in there. And let me just tell you, first of all, he can make changes. But he's playing with a new device here, or a new way of thinking about it, right? So another way to advance this up another level is instead of playing off the roots, is now I'm going to play off of the third of each chord. So if I'm thinking A minor, I'm going to play off of C, which if I'm thinking diatonic triads, it's going to be a C major triad. D, I've got to think off of F sharp, which in the key of G is F sharp diminished. And then G, I'm going to think off of B, which would be a B minor chord. When I do this, now I'm getting up to the 7th degree. I've replaced the root, and now I'm getting to the 7th degree. Now, what's interesting if I move these across, and if I wanted to increase that vocabulary, I cannot do a chromatic passing tone down now because the target is that half step. So I have no choice but to do the chromatic approach below. Same here.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And so if I'm keeping those same fingerings wherever I'm going, again, it's no different in the sense of what I just played in the root position. It just now, and here's what's cool. If I'm playing over the chords now, and you can play the chords, I'll play the lick first if you want. So now I've enriched the sound.
Oh, sorry, I added a sharp 9. Uh-oh.
No sharp 9.
No.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. 1 and 2. Now, see, you're already getting a jazzy sound out of that, right? You want to play the lick? You want me? I'll do that too, so you can squawk me. Here we go. 1 and 2, 3,
Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, here's what I'd recommend to you, because you're already kind of messing in with the B string now, right? So maybe move it up here for right now to where you have the consistency until you get used to it. That's one of the things I do recommend. Kind of find where the zone is that you can really perform it in and without a lot, and then when you move it, it'll be fine, right? So if we do that again, 2 and 3 and 4 and 2. Okay. All right. And even that B minor, right? You're playing B minor like this. I would still keep consistent to where I play it. Because really, again, that's really what we're working on, right? Is that consistency between. Yeah. There you go. So then, so there's a next, that's another level. Now I can move it to the 5th and do the same thing. So if I go to the 5th of A, that's E. If I go to the 5th of D, that's A. And the 5th of G is D. So now I'm going to have E minor, A minor, and D major. Right? And again, now I'm going to keep it on the same string set just so I don't do anything. But now I can do chromatic approach or chromatic.
That's a different sound that I've.
Yeah, so if I did that, right? So because now I'm getting up to the 9th degree on all these chords. And so, there's where I'm getting ready to start. After that point, it's like I'm getting into maybe dangerous territory because it could.
If you continued on.
Yeah, because then I got to deal with some of these. But right now I'm safe. So that's good. But those are ways of enhancing a 2-5-1. All right? So anyway, I hope you got a lot of information out of this. Those sheets are on my website. But what we're going to do to close up today is we're going to play a tune for you because I want you to hear him play because he's fabulous. We're going to play a tune called Windows by Chick Corea. And we're going to quickly, let's just kind of do a little walkthrough of how you might use some of this on that particular tune.
Well, the first right off the bat, the first chord, that's like a Dorian sound.
Yeah.
Do those things that we were talking about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There
Start
it is.
using.
Uh-oh, we're having technical difficulties. Are
Hey, you have to out me and everything?
No, I'm not outing you, man. Are we still live? Oh, cool. I thought we were just sitting here playing to ourselves here. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So he's just doing the arpeggios just like we did on the A minor a moment ago. We're just simply doing it on that. So that might be a way we do it. All right. You know, the cool thing is, like I said, you don't have to always put them in order. One of the cool things that I teach students too, it's what I call modal arpeggios, and I'll post that at a later date or do a lesson on that at a later date. But I'll skip over. And when I skip over, and I'll show you some of this with the symmetry real quick. When I did that, I've got the root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th. But it's 2 consecutive chords. So if I'm doing it on the 2 chord, I'm really playing whatever the 2 chord is and the diatonic chord below it, A. So I can, if I wanted to extend that kind of thinking, I'm sorry, what did I just do? So I can make that kind of go a long distance, right? So yeah, that's one way we could use it on Windows because the opening chord's a B minor. Another place that I like to think about it is over the Lydian section, over that E Lydian. And like even that there, one of the things that I do when I'm comping behind that is I'll play the 4 chord because Lydian, the E is the 4 chord. Then I play the 5 chord triad over top of it. So if I'm improvising, I might think the same way and play F sharp to E major.
I see. Yeah.
You see how, so I'm just kind of layering these things to get those sounds, right? So there's a whole host of places that I can do this when I'm playing any kind of tune, whatever it may be. In this case, let's play Windows, and we're just going to jam on it. You could try using some of these if you want. I'll employ some places intentionally, and then yeah, we'll do that. We good to go, Texas?
Yeah.
Okay. Texas is the man. Did you know Texas was from Detroit? That's why we call him Texas.
You hurt my head.
All right, here we go. We'll play Windows. I hurt everybody's head, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
Here we go. There's the arpeggio, man. Nice, man. Nice, man. Thank you. Man, yeah. Hope you're applauding too. Yeah, man. Thank you, Ethan, so much for being here.
Honored.
Tonight.
Honored to
Such a
come out and do
wonderful
this.
player. Check out his Instagram. We'll post that Instagram in the description somewhere.
What's the handle? What's the handle of your Insta?
Yeah.
It's E Merry as in Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Underscore music. E Merry Music.
E Merry Music. Awesome.
On Instagram.
So check him out. Watch for him if he's out playing with Kevin or Rob or any of those guys. If you're in town, come check out his recital. I'm sure it's going to be killer. Hey, before I go, here's something I'm going to tell you about. If you haven't had the chance, selfless plug. Hey, check out this book, especially this one. This is the Harmonic Expansion Process, the Rock Guitarist's Guide to Playing Jazz. And what I do in this book is I talk about other ways of exploring harmony and chord voicings to get to those voicings that we use as jazz players, or they're just chords. They're not even jazz chords, but we think about them as being jazz chords. And I have some interesting ways that I build these based on pentatonics and power chords, because that's the way I see chords. And if you check this book out, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It will increase your chord vocabulary exponentially. I did this thing in seminar where I talked about how I took one concept, one chord, and we turned it into how many voicings that day? 270
Something like that.
270 voicings from
I don't
just
remember 'em all.
understanding 16 different fingerings that are pretty easy to build. So anyway, you got that. And then I'd also like to recommend Mastering Chord Forms, the Guitarist's Guide to Harmonic Expression. And this goes through all these drop 2 chords and drop 3 chords, all these triads like we did today, but in chord voicings, and seeing how to manipulate those. And I'll be doing some lessons on this. But hey, you can pick these books up. It'll be a wonderful gift for someone, a guitarist that you love. But anyway, or hate. Just get the books because they're good. But anyway, you can find these on Amazon. And thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you'll be back. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, like the channel, share the channel. Go out there and hit me up on Instagram and everything else. I don't know if we had anybody pose any questions.
Yeah, we have 2 questions. The first one's from Hunter. He says, what hair product do you use?
I knew it. See, this is what you get when you have your students. Well, I guess I would have to say Gillette.
No, I'm not an Aquanet guy.
Well, I have nothing to have Aquanet hold it up with. That's why I've got this now, because I used Aquanet in the 80s, I guess. But anyway, thank you, Hunter. Note to self to make a grade for that. Anyway, what else we got? Anything?
The other question is, we have a song request, and we're waiting for.
Oh boy.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Waiting for them to respond, but.
Not Nirvana, right? No Nirvana.
No, I think it's your favorite. I think it's every grunge tune ever.
Every grunge tune ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that note, look, I guess we've been on here a bit. I'm not even sure how long this has gone, but those of you that's hung with us tonight, I appreciate it very much. Thanks again to Ethan. Thanks to Texas for doing this tonight. And check us out. Hopefully you'll see our next episode next Tuesday night, and it will be a recorded one unless we have to go live. But for more lessons. So check out The Guitar Doctor is in, and check out my other platforms too. Thanks so much. We'll see you. Thanks, Ethan.